Okay, Jeremy, you've got the support of Unite the Union. Why do you think that is? What's the matter with, if you like, the way that Labour is related to the trade unions in the past?
Unite the Union is the biggest union in Britain, and it represents workers in many, many industries, both public sector and private sector. And many of those are either suffering austerity, cuts, low wages, wage freezes, or short-term working or zero-hours contracts. And they have sought and want the Labour Party to adopt different economic policies that don't accept the principles of austerity, that do talk about redistribution of wealth and power within our society. And Unite are a very serious organisation, and they, after a discussion, have decided they want to take part in this whole debate, and I'm very grateful for their support today.
In relation to public ownership, where do you stand on public ownership, and how should the unions participate in, if you like, planning sectors of the economy or helping strategic development of the economy? What do you think their role is?
The post-war public ownership in Britain of the key industries, particularly the transport sector, played a great role in developing an awful lot of things in this country. I think we should be proud of our National Health Service and end the internal market and the private finance initiative system in it. We should be proud of the railway system we've got, but we have built it with public money. We have refurbished and electrified many lines. It's our money that's done it. I don't see why private train operating companies should make their profits out of this. I want the whole railway network in proper public ownership. That's the first start of it. Second is the issues of Royal Mail, the way in which Royal Mail has been stripped apart, and now the government is proposing to sell off the last 30% in Royal Mail. Royal Mail is a natural monopoly. We all need a postal system and a postal service. We have the post office in public ownership, but Royal Mail in private ownership. TNT have just shown it's impossible for a private company to do anything other than rip off the best parts of the service and try and do letter delivery. Even they fail to do that. So I think Royal Mail should be in public ownership. The other areas are developing of industries. Britain has a good record in general of innovation and development of new things. Jet engine, telephone, television, all these things, linear motors, so many things have been developed in this country, but never actually brought to production in this country. I would like to see a government that wouldn't be afraid to invest in new industries, invest in new services, and invest in new technology. We have the talent, we have the experience, and we've got the skills here to do that. But if we're going to develop an economy that's solely reliant on financial services, then that is not a productive way to go forward.
And do you think the banks should be instruments for investment and development?
Well, the banks are still largely publicly owned. We bought the shares to bail them out in 2008-9 under the Labour government. Sadly, that share ownership was in a holding company rather than the management of the bank. But I think the banks have to be an instrument for this, and there has to be a government participation and government control of what the banking industry does.
And what do you think about attempts like in Latin America to democratize the society and the state and power? How do you think economic and political power can be democratized with mass involvement?
Very good question. The Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership that's being discussed largely in secret at the moment has a danger within it of a race to the bottom of the lowest common denominator, worst standards on each side of the Atlantic applying to both sides of the Atlantic. That's wrong. So I do think there's a question there of essentially empowering global corporations over national governments. A threat to democracy is there in the world with these very powerful global corporations that are attacking democratically elected governments. I mean, even for goodness sake, the government of Australia is being attacked by Philip Morris for plain packaging of cigarettes, and so on, and many others like this. So let's re-examine those issues of democracy. Within Britain, we have differing systems of government for English regions, London, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. I want to see us have an open constitutional convention now in opposition, so we work out how we empower people, how we democratise things, and how we have an elected second chamber, not an appointed House of Lords. So we bring democracy into Parliament.
And what sort of fundamental rights do you think should be in like a new constitution if there was such a thing?
Well, first of all, we don't repeal the Human Rights Act. We accept that's important. We enshrine in law the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as well as the Human Rights Act. We put into law treaty obligations such as the International Labour Organization. So we end up with a degree of fundamental rights fundamental rights for citizens, fundamental rights of organisation, assembly, free speech. We don't have bills like the so-called Lobbying and Transparency Act, which is anything but transparent and very much in favour of corporate lobbying and very much against trade unionists and voluntary organisations. So I think we need to rebalance the rights in our society in favour of the citizen, in favour of the rights of people, as we would expect anywhere else in the world.
Okay, one more question. Years ago there was demonstrations, 2010, against student loans and the increase in them. As far as I understand it, you're in favour of free education as a right for all people. Is that right?
Yes, I opposed the student fee regime, and I wanted public funding of universities rather than what has effectively happened is a degree of privatisation of universities under this government, to some extent by the funding regime under the previous government. So I'd like us to reduce the fees and eventually abolish the fees altogether.
Thanks very much. Great.
Thank you.